Hey friends, I'm Jackson. Welcome back to Jackson English Stories. I'm so glad you're here. What if I told you the biggest obstacle to speaking fluent English isn't grammar, or vocabulary, or even time? It's that little voice in your head, the one that says, "Translate first." The one that whispers, "Don't mess this up." I've heard that voice. I used to live with it, and it almost stopped me from ever becoming fluent.
Hi there, I'm Anna. If you've ever felt stuck between your thoughts and your words, between what you want to say and what actually comes out, this one's for you. Today we're diving into a mindset shift that changed everything for us and for thousands of learners we've met. Stop translating, start thinking in English. Sounds impossible? Let's talk about why it's not.
I remember this one moment. I was sitting in a coffee, practicing English alone. I had my notebook, my dictionary app, and all my good intentions. The waiter came over, asked me something simple, still or sparkling. And my brain? It went into overdrive. Wait, what's a sparkling? Does that mean soda? Fizzy water? Should I say yes? Or no? Or just nod? I froze. Again. And that's when I realized I wasn't thinking in English. I was translating every word, and it was slowing me down, emotionally, mentally, and socially.
That's such a common trap. We try to be perfect, so we translate. But translation is like walking with a mirror in front of you. You see everything backwards, and you trip over your own steps. You don't need to speak perfect English to be fluent. You need to train your brain to think in it. But how? And when? And is it really possible without living in an English-speaking country? Yes. Absolutely yes. But you need the right approach.
First, let's break a myth. The one that says fluency means speaking fast. It doesn't. Fluency means speaking freely. And that starts when your thoughts stop taking a detour through your native language. Think about this. Every time you see a dog, do you first think of the word in your language and then translate it to dog? Or does the word just appear on its own? That's the goal. That's the shift. And you've already done this in your own language, hundreds of times a day. Now we're just building the same pathway in English.
Exactly. And the key is frequency, not force. You don't have to pressure yourself to only think in English all day. Start small. One sentence, one idea, one object. I remember when I was learning French, I used sticky notes. Everywhere. Refrigerator, light switch, sink. It sounds silly, but it works. Your brain starts to make connections, not through translation, but through repetition. Exactly. And the key is frequency, not force. You don't have to pressure yourself to only think in English all day. Start small. One sentence, one idea, one object. I remember when I was learning French, I used sticky notes. Everywhere. Refrigerator, light switch, sink. It sounds silly, but it works. Your brain starts to make connections, not through translation, but through repetition.
So here's a question. What would happen if, tomorrow morning, the first 5 things you thought you said in English? No grammar check. No perfect sentence. Just raw, honest thought. I'm tired. It's raining. I need coffee. That's it. That's where fluency begins. In your kitchen, not in your textbooks.
And this brings us to something powerful, a mindset that makes or breaks your fluency journey. Progress, not perfection. We've said it before, but it's worth repeating. Because every time you freeze in English, it's not because you're incapable. It's because you're afraid of being imperfect. And that fear creates hesitation. But what if you replaced hesitation with curiosity? What if, instead of, "I don't know what to say," you asked, "What could I try saying?"
That tiny question is the door. And when you open it, something surprising happens. You start to play with the language, experiment, improvise, and even when it's not perfect, it's real. It's alive. That's what we want. So stay with us, because in the next part, we're going to share real stories from learners who made this shift. People who went from frozen translators to confident communicators. Their stories might sound like yours, and their solutions might just be what you've been waiting for. The first time I truly realized how much I was depending on translation happened on a crowded subway in Toronto. I had just moved there, and everything felt new, noisy, fast, overwhelming. I was reading signs in English, silently translating them into my native language in my head, just to feel like I was keeping up. But it wasn't working. My brain was exhausted by 10 a.m. Then one day, a woman beside me sneezed. Instinctively, I turned to her and said, "Bless you." Just like that. No translation, no hesitation. And in that tiny, unplanned moment, I felt something shift. It wasn't just about the words. It was about confidence, reaction, connection.
But of course, that didn't mean it was smooth sailing after that. There was another time, I'll never forget it. I walked into a phone store to ask about a new SIM card. I had prepared the whole sentence in my head. "Hello, I would like to get a prepaid SIM card for my phone." I practiced it again and again. But when I finally stood in front of the clerk, all I could manage was SIM, me, new. He smiled kindly, but I walked out, embarrassed.
What bothered me most wasn't the mistake. It was the fact that I knew the words. I had studied them. I had written them down. But the pressure of the moment, the real, human moment, erased them. That's when I started thinking, maybe the problem wasn't that I didn't study enough. Maybe the problem was that I was relying too much on preparation and not enough on presence.
It was a painful moment, but it led to something better. I started letting go of the pressure to speak perfectly. I gave myself permission to speak messily. I began talking to myself during walks, narrating what I saw. I'd say things like, "Okay, I'm walking past a bakery. Smells good. I think they have chocolate croissants today." Silly stuff. But over time, it added up.
And then came a breakthrough. I was at the corner bakery again, same place. This time the clerk asked, "Would you like it toasted?" And instead of freezing, I smiled and said, "Yes, please." Toasted is better. It wasn't perfect, but it was fluent. And that's the moment I started to believe I could actually do this. So let me ask you, have you had a moment like that? A time when you wanted to say something, but your brain hit pause? What would happen if you stopped trying to get it right and just tried to get it out?
Because in the next part, we're going to share even more stories, this time from other learners. And their stories? They might sound a lot like yours. One of the first learners I ever worked with was a woman named Maria from Brazil. She had been living in London for almost 3 years, working as a cleaner in a hotel. She understood almost everything people said to her, but when it came time to respond, she froze. Every time. She told me, "I know the words. I understand. But when I open my mouth, I panic."
I've heard that so many times. And it's heartbreaking, because it's not a language problem, it's a confidence one. Maria had the vocabulary, but she didn't trust her English, or herself. And that fear of sounding wrong was stronger than her desire to speak.
So we started small. I asked her to say just one thing out loud each day at work. Just one. It could be anything. Hello. Good morning. Thank you. No pressure, no correction, just effort. And within 2 weeks, something shifted. One day, her supervisor asked if she could stay an extra hour. Maria paused and said, "Yes, I can stay." 4 words. but it changed everything.
And that's how it starts. One sentence. One moment of bravery. I had a student in Vietnam named Min. He'd studied English for 10 years. 10! But he had never used it in conversation. He once told me, "I think in Vietnamese." Then I try to translate. But I get stuck, so I stop. We worked together to break that pattern.
What worked for Min?
We used role play. Every week, we'd pick one real-life situation. Ordering at a coffee, asking for help on the street, making small talk. I would play the stranger. He would respond. At first, it was slow and awkward, but each week he got a little faster, a little braver. And the biggest shift? He stopped preparing full sentences in Vietnamese first. He started reacting in English, imperfectly, yes, but naturally.
That's such a win. I think every learner needs to hear that. Fluency doesn't come from never messing up. It comes from messing up so many times that your brain stops being afraid of it.
Exactly. And these stories aren't rare. We hear them every day. People who've studied for years, but felt like they were failing, until they gave themselves permission to try differently, to think differently.
And if you're listening right now thinking, that sounds like me, stay with us. Because in the next part, we'll explore the real reason this happens. The root cause of freezing. It's not just about fear, it's about how your brain works. And when you understand that, you stop blaming yourself. You start making progress.
Get ready. What we're about to share might change the way you see your English forever. Let's talk about freezing. That moment when your brain goes blank, your mouth won't move, and all the English you thought you knew just disappears. It's not just you. It's not just about English. It's about how our brains handle stress. And once you understand that, everything changes.
That's right. Think about the last time you were nervous, really nervous. Maybe it was a job interview or a first date or standing up to speak in a group. What happened in your body? Your heart raced, your hands got sweaty, your thoughts got cloudy. That's your nervous system responding to what it thinks is danger. And when you speak in a second language, that stress response can be even stronger.
Exactly. The brain sees unfamiliar situations, like using English with a stranger, as risky. And so it activates the freeze response, just like an animal in the wild might freeze when it senses a threat. It's not weakness, it's survival. Your brain is literally trying to protect you.
But here's the problem. The brain can't tell the difference between real danger and social discomfort. So it reacts the same way. And that reaction blocks access to language. It's not that you forgot English. It's that your brain pressed pause.
I remember reading about this in a book on neuroscience and language. There's a part of your brain called Broca's area. It controls speech production. When stress hormones flood your system, Broca's area gets less blood flow. That means it doesn't work as well, which means your words get stuck.
That explains so much, doesn't it? You're not lazy. You're not bad at English. You're just human. And your body's doing what it's designed to do. But here's the good news. The more you understand this, the more power you have to work with it, instead of against it.
And that's why mindset matters. If you go into every conversation thinking, "I have to get this right or I'll look stupid," your brain hears that as a threat. But if you go in thinking, "Let's see what happens," your brain stays calm, curious, open.
So here's a reframe. Instead of saying, "I'm nervous," try saying, "I'm excited." The physical response is the same, racing heart, fast breathing, but the meaning is different, and that small shift can change how your brain processes the moment.
And it's not just about positive thinking. It's about training your nervous system. That's why breathing helps. That's why warm-up phrases help. That's why tiny daily exposures to English matter. You're not just building language skills, you're building emotional resilience.
I always tell my students, fluency is not just a skill, it's a state, a feeling of flow. And you don't get there by pushing harder. You get there by softening your fear.
So now we've explored what's really going on when you freeze. It's not your fault. It's your biology. But it's also something you can shift. With awareness, with practice, with the right tools.
And that's what we'll get into next. How to stop freezing and start flowing. Real tools, real practice, real change. Because the next time your brain says, freeze, you'll know how to say, no thanks, I've got this.
So let's talk about how we actually shift out of that freeze mode. What do you do in the moment? When your heart's racing, your thoughts are tangled, and English feels like a foreign planet again? Well, here's the first thing I learned. Don't wait for confidence to speak. Speak to build confidence. That one insight flipped everything for me.
I remember one of my students, Khalid, used to wait until he felt ready to speak English in public. He kept waiting and waiting. But the truth is that feeling of readiness rarely shows up by itself. It's not something you find. It's something you create by acting before you feel ready. That's the heart of the solution, small, deliberate action.
Right. So we started designing tiny moments of action. We called them English wins. Not tests, not performances. Just little victories that train the brain to feel safe while speaking. Like asking someone, "What time is it?" Or saying, "I'm still learning. Can you repeat that?" These aren't just survival phrases. They're trust builders. Each time you use one, your brain records a new message. See? We didn't die. We can do this.
And this works best when it's low pressure. No audience, no grades, just repetition. That's why I love mirror talk. Stand in front of a mirror and speak, not to perform, but to connect. Say what you're doing, what you're feeling, even what you wish you could say to someone. I'm tired. I want to learn faster. I'm trying. That kind of honesty builds fluency faster than memorized scripts ever will.
One of my favorite tools is called looping. You take one phrase, like, "I'm looking for the bus stop," and you add one word at a time. "I'm looking for the bus stop near the library." Then change it again. "I'm looking for the train station next to the coffee shop." It's playful. It's rhythmic. It lets your brain explore without judgment.
You can even do it silently. I used to practice on the subway. I'd watch the people around me and think in English. She's wearing a red coat. He looks tired. I think he's going to work. Just observations, no pressure. But the more I did it, the more natural it became to think in English without translating.
And here's the game changer. Practice speaking when you're not nervous. Most people only try English in stressful situations. But if the only time you speak is when you're under pressure, your brain will always connect English with fear. So build the habit in safe spaces. While walking, while cooking, while showering. That's when fluency grows roots.
We're not saying it's easy, but it is possible. And it starts with one question. Where can I speak just a little more today? Not perfectly, not loudly, just more. Because when your brain sees English as something familiar, not frightening, you stop freezing. You start flowing.
So now that we've seen the shift in mindset and the tools to back it up, let's get practical. In the next section, we'll show you how to build these tools into your everyday life. So they're not just ideas, but habits. Habits that change everything.
Let's start small. Because real change doesn't happen in some big dramatic moment. It happens in the tiny details of your day. In the 5 minutes before work. In the walk to the grocery store. In the quiet moment when you're making coffee. That's where transformation begins. When English becomes part of your rhythm.
One of the easiest ways to do this? Habit stacking. Attach your English practice to something you already do. Brush your teeth. Say one sentence out loud in English while brushing. Make tea? Describe what you're doing. I'm pouring water. The water is hot. I'm waiting. It might sound silly, but it wires your brain to associate English with everyday actions.
And don't underestimate the power of labels. I used to have sticky notes on everything. Mirror, door, lamp. Every time I saw the word, I said it out loud. Not once, but every time. That's how you build real connections. Repetition plus environment equals memory.
Here's something fun you can try. Create English zones in your home. Maybe your bathroom is your speaking zone. Every time you enter, say 3 sentences. Or your kitchen becomes your listening zone. Only English podcasts while cooking. These zones give your brain structure. They remove the question of when to practice. It just becomes part of the space.
Another thing I did that helped me think in English was journaling, but out loud. I'd grab my phone, hit record, and just talk. Today was hard. I'm tired. I'm proud of myself for trying. That became my private space to practice. Not to impress anyone, not to sound smart. Just to get used to hearing my own voice in English.
That's so powerful. Because here's the truth. Fluency lives in the mundane. Not in the fancy exam room, not in the big presentations, but in the daily, invisible moments. If you can talk about your socks in English, you're on the right track. If you can describe your breakfast, your commute, your mood, that's fluency.
So think about your day. Where are the little windows of time? Where can you sneak in a sentence, a phrase, a thought? The goal isn't quantity, it's consistency. Because when you show up every day, even just for 3 minutes, your brain starts to say, ah, this matters.
And it does matter. Not because someone is watching, but because you are watching. You're showing up for yourself. You're saying, I want this. I'm building this. And that self-respect? That's the foundation of confidence.
In the next part, we'll dig even deeper into the skills that support these habits, like listening, pronunciation, and reaction time. But for now, let this sink in. Fluency starts where you are, right here, right now, in your room, in your voice.
So ask yourself, what's one sentence you could say in English? Right now. Let's talk about skills. Because building a habit is powerful, but combining that habit with focused skill practice, that's where the fluency shift really takes off. Let's start with listening. And I don't just mean hearing English. I mean training your ear to recognize patterns, tone, rhythm, even emotion.
That's a great point. Passive listening, like having Netflix on in the background, can help a little. But active listening, that's the game changer. One exercise I love is called shadowing. You listen to a short sentence from a podcast or video, pause it, and repeat it out loud, mimicking the exact sound and rhythm. It's not just about the words, it's about the feel of how those words move.
And here's something a lot of learners overlook. Listening isn't just about understanding others. It's about preparing your brain to speak. The more patterns you hear, the more naturally those patterns come out when you speak. You're feeding your language system, not just your ears.
And speaking of speaking, let's talk about pronunciation. No, you don't need a perfect American or British accent. What you do need is clarity and confidence. And here's a secret. Your mouth needs training, just like a muscle. Repeat short, natural phrases again and again. Could you say that again? I'm not sure, but I'll try. Sounds good to me. These phrases are like tools you carry in your pocket.
I used to pick one phrase per week and say it 10 times a day. I'll take the chicken sandwich. Or, can I get a coffee to go? It sounds simple, but when you repeat something that often, it becomes part of you. It comes out automatically, without panic, without pause.
Let's not forget reaction time. Many learners freeze not because they don't know the words, but because they hesitate. They search for the perfect sentence. And in that pause, fear sneaks in. So practice fast, low-pressure responses, ask yourself questions, then answer quickly. How are you? I'm okay. Where are you going? Just to the store. Don't wait for perfection. Aim for momentum.
One thing that helped me was using a timer. I'd pick a question, like, "What did you do today?" and give myself 5 seconds to answer. It forced me to speak from instinct, not overthinking. The first few times? Messy. But after a week? Smoother? More natural? That's the magic of time pressure. It trains your response muscle.
And if you're practicing alone, record yourself. Yes, it's awkward. Yes, you'll cringe. But you'll also learn. You'll hear your pacing, your tone, your hesitation points. And that awareness, it's gold. Because the more you hear yourself, the more control you gain.
So, to recap, 3 skills that amplify your fluency practice: active listening, pronunciation through repetition, and fast reaction through timed response. Combine these with your daily habits, and you're no longer just learning English. You're living it.
Coming up, we'll show you how to weave all of this into your real world, even when life gets busy. Because the goal isn't more study, it's smarter practice. Let's make English a part of your daily rhythm in a way that's real, doable, and totally yours.
Let's face it, life gets busy. You've got work, family, errands, and a million other things pulling your attention. So how do you practice English consistently when your day already feels full? The answer isn't doing more, it's doing it differently.
That's right. You don't need 2 hours a day with a textbook. You need 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there, woven into things you're already doing. That's how I kept up my French while raising 2 kids. I didn't study. I lived the language in the cracks of my day.
One trick I swear by is habit anchoring. Choose one daily task, like making your bed, brushing your hair, or walking to the bus stop, and attach a short English activity to it. It could be saying 5 things out loud, or repeating one phrase, or listening to a voice note. Keep it simple. Keep it real.
Another idea? Change your phone's language settings. Not all day, just for 1 hour. Suddenly, your everyday actions become learning moments. You open the calendar and you learn the word reminder. You scroll Instagram and you see likes, shares, comments, all in English. These tiny exposures build comfort.
I used to write my to-do list in English, even if it was just buy milk, send email, call mom. It helped me build writing fluency without needing extra time. If you write anything during the day, notes, messages, reminders, try switching some of it to English.
And don't forget about listening. Turn boring moments into mini practice sessions. Washing dishes, play an English podcast, folding laundry, listen to a story, driving or commuting. Let your ears soak in the rhythm of real English. No pressure to understand everything. Just let the sound become familiar.
And here's a mindset shift that really helps. Stop separating study time from real life. English isn't something you turn on and off. It's something you thread into your daily world. When you do that, it stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like part of who you are.
I once had a student who practiced while cooking dinner. She'd narrate each step. I'm chopping the onion. Now I'm adding salt. Her kids laughed at first, but a few weeks later, her youngest started joining in. Mom, say it in English. It became their evening routine.
That's the magic. Not perfection, not pressure, but presence. Being present with the language, even in small ways, rewires your brain. Over time, it stops feeling foreign and starts feeling familiar.
So don't wait for the perfect moment. Use the real moments, the busy ones, the messy ones. Those are the moments that matter most.
Coming up, we'll share some real-life inspiration. Stories from learners who built fluency not in classrooms, but in kitchens, parks, and bus stops. And they'll show you, yes, it's possible. even for you.
Let me tell you about Amir. He's a taxi driver in Berlin, originally from Syria. When we first met, his English was limited to where to and okay. But every day he listened to English radio while driving. At red lights, he'd repeat phrases under his breath. He kept a notebook on the dashboard. When passengers taught him new words, he wrote them down. Fast forward 6 months. He was telling jokes, giving directions, even having small talk about the weather. All from inside his car.
That's incredible. I knew someone similar, Marina, from Ukraine. She worked the night shift at a bakery. She told me, "The oven is loud. No one talks. So I talk to myself." She practiced conversations in her head while kneading dough. She'd whisper, "Hello? May I help you? Would you like a bag?" When she finally moved to a job with customers, she was ready. Not perfect, but confident, because she had rehearsed the moment again and again in real life.
There's something deeply moving about people who practice in private. They don't wait for a classroom, they create their classroom, a park bench, a kitchen, a sidewalk. That's what fluency looks like. Not flashy, but faithful. Small steps, every day.
I had a student once who worked as a janitor in a school. He started labeling objects in the supply closet with sticky notes: broom, bucket, soap. He said, "No one knew I was studying, but I did." And that quiet effort changed him. A year later, he joined a community English club. The first time he spoke, his hands shook, but his words, clear, measured, honest.
And that's what we hope for everyone listening, to see yourself in these stories. To know that your journey doesn't have to look perfect to be powerful. You don't need a teacher watching or a test waiting. You need one reason to keep going.
So ask yourself, what's your reason? Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's getting a better job. Or maybe it's something quieter, like proving to yourself that you can, that you will.
And as we move into the final part of today's episode, we want to leave you with something that goes beyond tips and tools. A message from us to you, a reminder of why this journey matters and how to keep moving, one brave step at a time.
Fluency isn't a finish line. It's not something you reach and then stop. It's a rhythm, a relationship, a daily choice to show up for your voice, no matter how shaky, no matter how slow.
And if you've listened this far, then you're already doing it. You're listening, you're learning, you're choosing courage. That's something to celebrate. So many people never start because they're afraid to look foolish. But you're already in the game.
I want you to remember this. Fluency lives in moments, not tests, not certificates, but in the time you asked a stranger for directions, or ordered food, or whispered, "I'm trying," when no one else heard. That's real English. That's your English.
And if today's story reminded you of something, some moment where you froze or surprised yourself or just kept going, we'd love to hear about it. Leave us a comment. Share your story. Because your voice, it matters, and someone else might see themselves in your words.
You can also support the channel by subscribing, sharing this episode, or even just playing it again while you practice. Repetition isn't boring. It's how confidence is built.
And we'll be here next week with another story, another practice, and another reminder that your English doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours.
Until then, take care, be kind to yourself, and keep speaking, even when it feels messy, because that's where the magic happens.
One sentence at a time.
See you soon.